welcome to level one. Here we want to evaluate and look into the question of identity. Okay, because if we can settle that at ground zero, we can settle that everything must have been created, then we can immediately turn that question back upon ourselves. And we can look at what we are and try to ask this question: what is my identity? What exactly am I and who exactly am I? And after a lifetime of investigation and introspection, we can conclude that we are composed of a body, a soul, and a spirit. Okay? Now, without getting into an entire lifetime of investigation, let me just break those down. Can we agree that there's space between us? That's a good question. Can we agree that there is space between us? And I think the answer would be yes. Every person that I've asked has been able to say yes, there is space between us. And even those who try to complicate the question, say, well, what do you mean by space? And what do you mean by us? And all of that. After we kind of hash that out, they still come to the agreement, yeah, there's space between us, because they're allowed to use whatever definition they want for space. I mean, this could be literal air and like space between us. It could be just distance or whatever. It could be, if it's a simulation, we could be like, well, there's perceived space between us. And so, yes, there's space between us in that sense. Or even if we are in a simulation, then, the real selves that are in the real world plugged into the simulation, logically there would be space between those bodies that are plugged in. And so no matter how much you want to complicate the question or break it down or try to make it unanswerable, it is answerable that we can agree there is space between us. And that right there can show us that we can conclusively decide that we are sentient beings, that we have a soul, okay? Because only sentient beings can agree upon thought questions, all right? Only sentient beings, only souls can agree upon thought questions. Just to break that down a little bit, let's look at the animal kingdom, because we've got alpha males and we've got beta males, or alpha animals, beta animals, whatever. And maybe the alpha asserts dominance upon a beta. And the beta succumbs to that and says, I agree. You are the alpha, I'll just be the beta. Well, is that really an agreement? And is that really an agreement to a thought question? I would say no, it's not. Because that's really actually just survival. Okay? The beta male isn't, weighing the logic. It's not reasoning with the alpha. What it's doing is deciding that it doesn't want to die. It doesn't want to get into a fight. It doesn't want to be injured, because that alpha may be stronger than the beta. And again, asserts its dominance upon the beta. Now, when the beta bows down and succumbs to it, that's not the same kind of agreement that we're talking about with agreeing upon a thought question, such as, is there space between us? There's no danger or threat or consequence to the outcome of that question. It doesn't matter to either one of us if there's space between us or not. It's just looking at the environment and deciding, I've weighed this upon my own standards of judgment, and I've decided, yes, there is space between us. And that means you have a kind of autonomy. You've got a kind of sentience. You've got a kind of soul. All right, so that's what that is. Now, if we have a body and we have a soul, we could also conclude that we have a spirit, because we've got something that is holding it together. Okay, because my soul must be inside my body somewhere. I don't know where, but it's got to be in there somewhere, because, this is me. All right, my soul isn't going to be in the siding back there, the wood planks of wood. Okay, my soul is not located inside that wood. It's located somewhere here inside my body. And again, even if it were like a simulation, my soul would be connected in some kind of way to this actual body. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a simulation, would it? And I wouldn't be plugged into a simulation if it wasn't somehow connected to this body. Um, so that spirit is the thing that holds it together and gives drive and gives force and gives power to lots of other things that we don't need to discuss in level 1. What we also don't need to do in level 1 is answer the question, who am I? What is my identity? We don't need to answer that at level 1. What we need to do is try to figure out, can we know our identity? Is that even possible? Can I actually come to a true and complete knowledge of my own identity? And it's got to be no. The answer is no. We can't, because the reason is that our identity is intrinsically linked to our creation and our purpose. Okay. What if it is a simulation? The question is, am I actually a human in the really real world? I mean, what if I'm not even a human in the really real world? What if I'm something else? That would have a big implication to my identity. Huge. But aside from the simulation, what if I can go through my entire life and I can do my own introspection and I can decide for myself, well, I'm A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these things. And maybe I get up to 99%. And maybe that 99% includes truths, includes falsehoods, false lies. And it's a combination, okay? But you even still have the last 1% that's unknown. That's not a true and full understanding of who I am. So no, I wouldn't have a knowledge of my own identity. Now, cognitive dissonance would come into play in that situation. I would say, maybe I'm okay with 75%, or maybe I'm okay with 85%, or whatever it is, or maybe even get to 99%. And what if you get to 99% and just happens to be all truths, okay? And you can even decide for yourself that 99%, all of these things that you've discovered or learned about yourself, about your own identity, you can say it's all true, except that last 1%. Now, whatever that last 1% is, just might wipe away everything of the 99, potentially, because you just don't know what that 1% is in the first place. And so you don't have a true and full, complete understanding of who you are. So at level 1, we need to look at that. We need to say, hey, is it even possible to know my own identity? It's not. The only way to know my own identity, for it to come to my knowledge, is if it is revealed to me. Okay, and then at that point, the creator, since we've already determined at ground zero that we must have a creator, it'd have to be the creator who reveals my identity to me. But here's another problem. I can't, of my own volition and of my own power, discover the identity of the creator either. I can't do anything to use a telescope or an experiment or archaeology, none of that stuff. Like, no matter what I do, anything I interact with is going to be physical. It's going to be part of the universe. But that creator is outside of the universe. It's outside of space, time, and matter. And so there's nothing I can do to actually discover the identity of the creator. And so I'll never know if the creator has revealed my identity to me, because first I have to have an identity of who the creator is in order to be able to go to the creator, say, hey, who am I? What's my identity? So that's the level 1. We don't need to go beyond that. Remember scaffolding. We got to learn these lessons one level at a time. If we can conclude at ground zero that everything must have been created, we can conclude in level one that I know I have an identity, but I don't know what my identity is. And I can't know unless it's revealed to me. It had to be revealed to me. But then the following question, we'll get into the next level, is has it ever been revealed to me? Or can it be revealed to me? Or how might I go about seeking out that revelation? All right. So, if you can agree and if you can conclusively decide with conviction that it's true, of my own power, I can never know my own identity in trueness and fullness. I want to know my own identity in trueness and fullness, but I can't discover it on my own. And I don't want to live in cognitive dissonance. I don't want to lie to myself. I don't want to get to 88% and be like, oh, that's fine. I'll be okay with 88% knowledge of who I am, when in truth and fact, I want 100%. I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm not going to be okay with a lesser percentage than complete true knowledge of who I am. So the only way I can reach that 100% is through revelation.